Good afternoon, everyone, and welcome to today's webinar, The State of Our State After Stage 4 with our Victorian chapter. I'm Monique Fennick from Australasian Supply Chain Institute, and before I introduce our panellists for today, just a few updates from the National Office. And firstly, a quick technical check. If you can hear me, please raise your hand. Thanks very much for that. Thanks, Matthew. After my update and our panel discussion, we'll have a live Q&A about registration for 15 minutes or so at the end of the webinar. So stick around for that if you have the time and are interested in registering through our professional accreditation scheme. We've got a small crowd today and polls are anonymous. So please do take part in the polls just so that we're able to benchmark ourselves against the rest of the Victorian chapter. It'll give you a good idea as to whether people are working from home, going back to work, the sentiment and how they're feeling. So that's the purpose of it, no other reason. So yeah, we'll be able to continue asking and answering questions after today in our closed LinkedIn group. If you're a member and you're not a part of that, please head over to LinkedIn, look for ASCI member, and you'll find that group to join. Today's webinar will also be recorded and posted on our YouTube channel. It's awarded 1 CPD point, and the update for the CPD program and the registration. We have a new class called the Associate registration, which is a new entry level, allowing for loads and loads and loads of people within our community to get started on their career pathway towards a professional supply chain manager, because you only need 150 eligibility points from the self-assessment tool on our website in order to apply. So we want as many people applying as possible so that our technical assessors can get you on the pathway and give you some really good advice as to your career and how you should head towards that great title of PRSCM in 2025 when it becomes available. The CPD program update, we're really excited. We have 40 speakers for our conference in February. So believe it or not, but we just happen to have all of our global supply chain leaders here in the country, not able to travel. And what that means for us is they're willing to share and learn with you. So don't miss that opportunity in late February to head to Western Sydney and be part of that COVID-safe learning environment. The ASCI Awards, which are held on the evening of day 1 of that conference, nominations are due 30th of November, which gives the judges some time to really mull over all the nominations and choose the very best for each category, and head over to the conference website for more information on how to enter for that. We have a whole schedule of classes for summer and all into mid next year on our website already for APICS training. But there's also going to be some other really cool shortcut courses such as supply chain risk. So check that out as it comes available. There are some more webinars and a Perth event, so I'll just flick over to those. The last few ASCI webinars for the year, and believe me, we've done over 40, so I'm really excited that we only have 2 to go, but they've been great. And I think they've been both a balance of technical expertise as well as some soft skills and leadership expertise. And next week is no exception to that, really talking about venturing out into the big bad world and what that looks like for you, for your organization, and when you meet your client, be a really important one to get you set for 2021. And we'll also the week after focus on ethics in supply chain management, because from the study that we did with our members about ethical issues in the supply chain, we're really honing in on what some of those are and how we can best help you. So please don't miss Wednesday, 25th of November to hear more about that. On the 2nd of December, we have a sponsored webinar with EV Cargo Technology, who've done some amazing work with Marks and Spencer in the UK, saving hundreds and thousands of dollars because of their smart design in packaging and cargo efficiency. So that webinar will be a product demonstration, essentially. So if that's your area, please don't miss that webinar. And we're excited to say that we have our first face-to-face event in Perth on the 3rd of December with Barry Standing from Mineral Resources presenting. This is going to be really great for ASCI because it allows for us to see how our COVID guidelines for events is played out. And we have thought very hard and carefully about this at the National Office in order to make a safe environment for you all to network face-to-face in 2021. The key learnings after this event will be collected, and we will be sharing it with our partners such as Michael Page in order for us to have a really great networking schedule for 2021. So without further ado, I'm going to stop sharing this screen and bring faces to the fro. Introducing our panelists for today, Matthew Jackson, ASCI Victorian Chapter President and Director for Deloitte Digital Operations and Industry 4.0. Christine Miller, ASCI Victorian Vice President and Head of Supply Chain for CBRE Advisory, and Claire Stuart, Michael Page's Associate Director for Supply Chain. Welcome to all of you today. And I can see you've all had haircuts because you can actually go to, to the hairdressers now, which is fantastic. Over to you first, Matthew, to give everybody a bit of an overview. You're the brains trust for today's webinar, so I wanted you to let everybody know what you were hoping to achieve out of today's session, particularly for Victorian members, but there's a host of others who also do a lot of business with Victoria or who have teams in Victoria too. What was your sentiment?
Yeah, hi Monique, thank you. Well, I went to the barber. It took a little bit too much off the top, to be open and honest. Today what we were just hoping to do is have an open, honest conversation about what's been taking place in Victoria, what we're seeing, how we've been feeling, get to understand a little bit more what's going on, hopefully understand a little bit more what's going to happen in the near future, hopefully a little bit in 2021, and just kind of come together as a state, as an understanding of what's going on, so that we can, it's about open and honest communication with each other and explaining, here's what's going to happen and here's what is happening, and just to hear a bunch of different people's opinions and voices on what it is in Victoria.
Yeah, it sounds good. And speaking of voices, I saw Roy Morgan had some study come out today that 2/3 of Victorians say they should return to the office, at least, this much. And the Chamber of Commerce is saying, yeah, at least one day a week. I can see that you are all sitting in your home offices. Christine, is it good to have the restrictions lifted? But yeah, is it a quandary?
I think it's an understatement to say that this year has been unusual, but I think what it's done is it's allowing for the definition of what's ahead to still be evolving. It's fantastic to have the freedom that we now have to move about without the restrictions. I think that will be positive in a number of ways. One, people will increase the in-person engagement that has naturally impacts on, I think, mental well-being. And I can relate to the comments that you mentioned, Monique, about going back to the office. Is we certainly within our organization have a variety of folks who are at different stages of life. There are those that are home with full families, and working from home can sometimes be a bit noisy. There are those that are by themselves in perhaps brand new apartments, and that can be quite isolating. So I think where we had previously always had these flexibilities to work remotely, I think we'll now see it almost become not scripted, but a bit more normal to have this absolute flex between the office and work from home. And I think everyone, regardless of kind of what stage they're in, has seen the benefits of connecting teams back in to an office environment. And I agree. I think even just the CBD environments as well as kind of those suburban CBD environments, the Parramatta's of the world too, need to just have a bit more life coming back to them. So I think we will kind of ebb and flow between our home and our office.
Yeah. And Matthew, you're involved in some large scale transformations and involved in coaching and mentoring and engaging in frontline and C-level execs. How are you managing that from your home office?
Yeah, it's not easy. I'll be open and honest, right? Like, I don't know if you guys can see, I'm in a kids room. I was on with a client the other day, and they're actually saying, "What room are you in?" And I said, "Well, I'm in my kids' room. I like, it's just a little kids' room because I have nowhere else to go. I've got two kids, one's 10 and 8. Well, I have two kids, right? So 10 and 8, and then when they were at school, it was fine. But when they had to be homeschooled for 6 months, it felt like I had nowhere else to go. And my wife, she works as a vet nurse at Green Cross. So, they were coming in and out, between meetings. I'd see they run in and look at us. Going back to what you're saying, Monique, in regards to, Melbourne opening up, for where I work, the building is just opened up today, I think, for the first time, right? But what they've said to us is, unless it is business critical, unless you cannot work from home. And I think that goes to what Christine was saying in regards to maybe you're isolated at home, or maybe you're in a shared house, or you work in a place where it's not really the best environment. Stay home. Right now, just stay home. Do not travel to work. Try to keep that distance still. And our assumption is it's not going to change until probably January. Yeah. And I can tell you, my company has offices in Brisbane, in Perth, in Sydney. The Sydney guys and team and the ladies, they come together maybe once a week, right? But you have to book your desk. If you go in on the random day, you're not going to see your colleagues. You're going to see other people. Maybe the finance department are going to be all in. The rest of the supply chain team isn't there. No one knows what's going on. And in fact, in both, I think, Perth and Brisbane, they're struggling to get people to go back into the office because they become so accustomed to working from home, right?
Claire, what are your thoughts? Is Collins Street completely dead right now?
Yeah, I'd say from a Michael Page perspective, we're not back in the office, and we're actually considering our office space at the moment. I've spoken to a number of what we'd call the corporate businesses that operate in the CBD, the likes of Telstra, for example, that would have had 5-6 buildings worth of 40 floors, for example, in years gone by, that have slowly been reducing their footprint. And I would imagine similar types of businesses, like Australia Post, for example, that are big employers in the CBD, they would probably be reconsidering their position as well. And I guess to Matthew's point about having to book in a desk, and what was traditionally going to be hot desking as the new latest thing, well, people aren't going to be able to do that now. And so those businesses are kind of reconsidering their position. And only this morning I was in a meeting where one of my colleagues was citing a manufacturing facility in Dandenong, where one of their planners has been onboarded during this time period within the last 6 months. They haven't actually met any of the team, any of the manufacturing guys. They're working from home, and they're reticent to return to the office, and that's caused massive problems within planning. So we are going to see, I guess, this blended working probably become more of a commonplace thing, I would have thought, as things materialize. But I guess we just don't know at the moment what the true impact is.
Yeah, I'm just going to launch a poll now and see how people are working, whether in the office or at home, wherever they are around the country. And Claire, I wanted to ask you about some of those employers you mentioned really have a unique selling proposition to attract great staff because of their bricks and mortar office and how beautiful it is, or appealing, or the fact that it's collaborative or cool. They will not have that kind of edge anymore. Do you think that's the case?
Absolutely. We were only talking to that yesterday about a meeting that I had with Matt a couple of years ago when I went into the office that he was occupying, and it was like a butler service to bring me a coffee with whiz-bang biscuits and marshmallows included as well. So that was obviously a selling point for, I guess, a number of the consultancy companies and blue chip businesses, is how cool their office is. That's not to say they won't be using that as an opportunity for the future, but I guess the questions that I'm asked from a recruitment perspective, from the candidate's perception, is around how the expectation would be moving forward, whether they would have to work full-time in the business, whether they would have a degree of flexibility. And I think some of the blue chip businesses had already been on board with that anyway, that had the facilities like Zoom, Microsoft Teams, etc. And if they're operating in a global sphere or an APAC sphere, they were probably no strangers to video conferencing. But moving forward, there's probably going to be questions around how much time needs to be spent in the office. And I think probably Christine and Matt would have similar views on that, I would have thought as well.
Yeah, I mean, it's really interesting. So we're talking to a lot of organizations in regards to how they're going to go either back to the office. Because a lot of businesses are actually questioning, well, if we're working just as well from home, why do we need so much space? One, why do we need to, what do we want to do? And how do we then integrate our people when they come on board? Because it is that, it's that onboarding process. It's that making sure people understand what's going on in their own little work environments and their own communities. And then, it's such a different mindset now, because people are going, well, if we're only going to go into the office 40 to 60% of the time, right? There are some roles that, if you're in, I'm going to say it, if you're in manufacturing, you've probably been in the factory 100%, right? Or close to it, right? Depending on the type of environment. If you're an operations guy, you're probably right in there. If you're the operations quality manager, or if you're the planner, right? Maybe not the planner, maybe the planner's at home, right? But all those people are trying to figure out, do I have to work from home now, or can I go back in the office? Because there is that variety. And I know in my work, and we were joking about that, I used to press a button, and in a client meeting, someone would come in with take an order and say, would you like tea, coffee, smoothie, or whatever, right? Don't get me wrong, it's lovely, but so now I have to press my own button for the kettle, right? Would I rather do that? Actually, you know what? I would. I'm not a pretentious person. I actually quite enjoy the being able to work from home, and it shows people that you are able to do your work. Where previously, I think people didn't always think I was working, or didn't think maybe we were all working, and people had different perceptions. So I actually would go, I think I know my organization do polls all the time internally, and we were saying something like 40% of the population pretty much are saying we're never going back in the office, right? And another 40% were going, we're willing to go back in 3 days a week. And then 20% were like, well, we'll go in all the time. So that massive swing basically says, get ready. And it's not just the most senior person to the most junior person. That percentage is the same across all age groups almost. And I found that really surprising, because a junior saying they're happy to work from home, and a person who's 60 who's saying I'm willing to work from home, that just blows my brain away personally. I go, well, personally, I like interaction with people. So how do we get that right balance? How do we find, and then be able to bring Melbourne back to where it needs to be, right?
Yeah, that's a good point, Matthew. I'm lucky enough within CBRE that there's an entire division that works with just workplace strategy. And they have been absolutely flat out with businesses, small, medium, and large businesses, who now have to figure out, how do they support those teams? Because I think what we've definitely seen is existing teams that were already working together seem to have seamlessly dispersed and transitioned into that work from home and that remote environment. That hasn't been an issue at all. But Claire, you mentioned kind of the whole onboarding process is new teams that are then being formed. So if you've got businesses going through types of transformation where new teams are being created, that can be a bit more difficult because a lot of times those teams really do gel with a bit of that face-to-face interaction. And that's where I think the freedoms that we've just recently got will really make a difference, because now those groups actually can get together. It might not be 5 days a week, 40 hours a week, in an office environment, but at least just to be able to have those human touch points. I think the other thing, Matthew, that you mentioned were those perceptions. We're definitely on the other side of a lot of perceptions, and particularly for those of us here in Melbourne, and I would say the same would apply for folks in Sydney too. There would have been constant travel between those two major cities, and quite frankly, Brisbane and a bit of Adelaide. Maybe Perth is probably the only one that it would have been relatively easy to jump on a plane, potentially for even day trips and travel. And there was a perception, I think, prior to the past months that if you weren't willing to jump on that plane and in a moment's notice fly to Sydney for a meeting, there was a risk that the client perceived that as potentially not being as committed or not being as service oriented. I think now that we're all highly skilled in everything from Teams to Zoom to Blue Jeans, you name it. I think we've all got a whole new list of skills. People now see that as quite normal now. It's no longer an indication of, well, you, Mr. Customer, weren't important enough for me to jump on a plane and fly there. I think we've actually proven that actually could be a bit frivolous, whether just from a cost, but also from a time management perspective. I'm sure everyone's feeling it too. It's actually, I don't know that it's a good thing, but it's actually easier to book yourself almost back-to-back meetings when you are virtual, because I don't need to get in the car and go drive and see a customer. I don't need to run down the street to Matthew's office. We don't need to move anywhere. Naturally, we do need to get up and move a bit more than we probably have been in the depths of the lockdown. But I think from just a time management, we're actually getting quite a bit out of the time. I've been working full days. I just haven't been doing it from an office. And that's definitely brought some changed behaviors, but definitely perceptions along with it.
And Matthew, your sweet spot is digitalization and companies that are doing well at that, and the others who are on that transformation. What are you seeing from the companies who are already quite established in their digital strategies? Have they been far ahead?
So, you know what, I think that's a really interesting question, Monique. I think those that already had some form of digital online presence have been extremely successful. In fact, I know some of our clients haven't been able to keep up with whether it's orders or users on their websites and how it all works. And they're going, well, exponential growth, we don't see this stopping. We see everybody in Australia now wanting to buy this way, even when shops open up. I think there was a study that showed even after all the shops open, I think it was, they said 30% of those people will not be buying back in the regular stores. They'll probably buy online, and therefore that online presence is even more important. So all those businesses that had that digital enablement beforehand have really, really stepped up and really gained a lot of, I'm going to call it market share of the online presence. At the same time, boy, oh boy, has it been hard also for organizations to keep going in their digital ambition, right? Because, if you're talking about, let's talk supply chain here, right? We talk things like control towers. We talk about digital supply networks. We talk about in your manufacturing environment, your smart factories. You talk about all these things that are trying to enable your capability to take steps forward. It either has been a challenge I'm going to call it stage first wave was hard, right? Because people had inventory, they were able to get things done, and they were able to really follow through. Then there was that little lull, and everybody started to buy a lot more digital capabilities. And they were like, we need to be on this, we need to get this visibility, we need to understand what's going on, all through our inventory levels, all through our planning cycles, all with our customer education of what's going on so that we're actually delivering to the expectations. And then when stage 2 hit again, or part 2 of COVID for Victoria, it then said to everybody, we needed even more, and we don't have visibility. And once they started to shut down our DCs and saying to people, really, you can't even be outside after 8 p.m., and everything started to slow down, if you hadn't gone digital, you were starting to suffer. You were starting to lose that ability to make the right decisions at the right time. So there has been a huge push. You know what? I'll also say that the Australian government has noticed that, right? So I think one of the really interesting things, and this goes for all our supply chain people, whether you're in a big organization or a small organization, there are going to be some government grants that are coming out. You know, I joke with people, there's my MAGA hat, which is Making Australia Great Again hat. And it basically is the modern manufacturing strategy. But as part of that, they're basically giving heaps of money away for digitization of small to medium to large organizations with supply chains for supply chain resilience. And that's what's going to help Australia and all the Victorian and New South Wales and Queensland and Perth and everybody in Western Australia companies take that next stage, right? So if you haven't gone digital yet, this is going to help us all get more digital so we are more competitive from a supply chain point of view so we can keep growing as a country. But more importantly, it then helps our supply chain departments have better visibility and that seat at the table that we're always talking about.
Yeah, it's a great opportunity for us, isn't it? And we were talking in our previous conversation about Victoria's manufacturing community, you know, which is the state's fourth largest employer, 13,000 businesses and 286,000 employees, quite a lot. We were wondering what part of that went completely into lockdown and what part of that was allowed to stay open and started to thrive, either through their digitalization efforts or just through the fact that it was consumer demand. Christine, what were your thoughts on seeing your clients that were just overwhelmed by the demand and the busyness of things?
Yeah, I think we've seen it referred to as the K graph. And it's not just manufacturers, it's also applying to retailers. There are those that under the lockdown and with a good digital strategy that could engage with online and had access to their inventory, they saw a real increase in demand and saw volumes really explode. You know, an example of that is we've been doing quite a bit of work with baby bunting, and naturally, you know, the babies continued to arrive in the pandemic. Parents needed to continue to outfit and, you know, and watch as children went from infants to toddlers and that particular product sector. So they maintained their retail stores as well as saw just a real boom in their online. So they really kind of stretched the DC to the max in terms of being able to handle those orders, keep store replenishment going. Another one in a different sector would have been office works as well, because when we all transitioned to work from home, and also I saw it too with my own children when they transitioned to homeschooling, is all of a sudden where we probably would have been tapping into supplies and things in a central office, well, now all of a sudden, not all of us had everything that we needed at home to be as efficient as possible. So they've seen a big boom. And I can see that the office works deliveries are still continuing here to my house, even once the kids are back at school, because now they've realized it's so much easier than waiting until Saturday and actually popping into the store, is just ordering things when they need them, whether it's for reports, projects. So they've seen a continued boom in that. I think we've also seen some that have had different experiences. Food and beverage seems to be one that has had some winners and losers in terms of that. And I think what it's also driven is it's driven changes in demand as well. Because if you look at grocery and food, even just taking things like soft drinks, is previously there would have been really high sales of those convenient cold beverages that are by the checkout. So when folks would be popping in to the Coles or the Woolies, whether that was at lunchtime during the day or on the way home, and grabbing a convenience drink. Well, that now, when shopping became such a targeted activity, but also restocking everything for home, that consumption pattern shifted, and all of a sudden now they were having to actually produce more of the multi-packs, because folks were no longer buying one bottle of Coke Zero. It was, okay, I better pick up a 12-pack because I'm going to be at home for the next week and I might need more than one, type of thing. So that has actually changed everything from the inventory holdings to how much space is required to actually how the stores needed to manage their shelf space. You would have seen in the very beginning, all of a sudden there was a bit of an explosion of those end of aisle displays. And that was literally because while certain aisles in the grocery store were completely empty, they were having to just make room for these types of different packaging that was at an increased volume.
Yeah. Claire, were you seeing that from the recruiting side? Were food and bev either suffering, or were they enjoying the new demand in different categories?
Yeah, I think there was a few common misconceptions, which Christine's probably alluded to there, that, you know, food and beverage were just as a carte blanche was going gangbusters. But I think that was, I guess, if you stopped and took a step back and reflected on which channels people operated in, that if you were food service led, for example, or you had a lot of your business tied up in export, that became more difficult. If you were flying through just grocery and wholesale, for example, then you were doing extremely well. But there was also a big shift for a lot of the FMCG companies in terms of the type of products that were being purchased, as Christine mentioned, in that a lot of these products that would be where their profit margins lay, they were the products that weren't being bought. So, for example, if you were purchasing for kids' lunches, packed lunches, for example, milkshakes in small cartons, and you were sending kids to school with them, that for the dairy companies was where a lot of the profit was. Whereas now families were buying litre bottles of milk. So there was this kind of big shift to SKU rationalisation and trying to keep up with demand within that. So we saw that, yes, there probably were still FMCG companies that were recruiting, but the types of roles that were being recruited were probably shifted. And businesses that the likes of CUB, Treasury Wine, that were supplying into on-premise, they were then probably utilising those personnel in other areas to support the growth in retail. And to Christine's point about Coke Zero, I chatted with the guys at CCA this morning, and they confirmed to me that was the case, that cans, big multi-pack cans that people just can't get enough of, so they're having to then utilise and shift their manufacturing facilities to produce more cans, which then in turn has a knock-on effect with the packaging companies. But on the other side of it, when you look at e-commerce and how that's driven and shifted, they've seen the likes of Catch, for example, massive spikes in demand, but the consumer behaviour has been quite different at the time of day that people have been purchasing products has changed as well, which has shifted their picking patterns in the background. The types of products that people have been buying. I remember speaking to the head of logistics over there a few months ago, and he told me bread makers, people couldn't get enough bread makers. There was a product that they brought in, which was to do with exercising at home, and they bought 6 months worth of inventory. It sold out in 3 days. So it was just crazy. And to Matthew's point about, I guess, digitalization and retailers, the guys that were ahead and already had, a footprint, an online presence, and could shift, they were the ones that have probably done the best out of it. So from a recruitment perspective and lens, seeing, the retailers that have invested or looked at transformation before this, the Reject Shop, for example, they've recruited quite heavily through this as well, and being quite savvy with their offering to bring from Tesco, which is already sourced product that Tesco probably had, and they've already got these relationships set up. So sometimes it's a bit of luck. I spoke with the GM of transformation at Coles Liquor, and she had said to me that prior to this, she'd actually moved a lot of their operation to Bev Chain in the background, which freed up a lot of space in Coles DCs that they didn't think they were going to need. And then all of a sudden, Coles got an edge against Woolies. So we're able to utilise the Coles Liquor space for other products. So, nobody could predict what was going to happen. We still don't know, but sometimes it's a bit of luck as well.
Yeah.
I think, yeah. Matthew.
I was just going to follow on what Claire was saying there. I speak to quite a bit of organizations, and I try to find out from my friends who are in supply chain how their supply chains have been affected or how they're being affected now, right? And I was on a call with a guy yesterday, and he literally said to me, I said, wow, it must have been such an amazing time. You've got a lot of product at the retailers, Kohl's, Woolies, Aldi, Metcash. How's it going? He goes, yeah, it's been okay. Not great. It's been okay. So one, he goes, Matt, I've got food service, right? So my food service business, if you've been involved in food service, it's probably been smashed, right? So food service is that stuff where you're bringing to your restaurants, your stores, and he makes a lot of one product, let's say muffins, that are probably put all through Melbourne, right? And he goes, completely stopped, right? He goes, we also would make muffins, and it goes back to that packed lunch. He goes, normally I make a lot of muffins for packed lunches. No one's buying packed lunch muffins right now. And then on the flip side, he goes, but all my frozen stuff, all that stuff is going gangbusters. But the problem is we also have capacity constraints, right? So, no matter how much people want, I can't make more out because of that overall process of making. Yes, I've got extra shifts. Yes, I can do that. But when you have a demand spike of, let's say, from 100 to 150, well, and it's already taking you 5 days, how are you going to get that extra out, right? On top of that, I was speaking to another person who is in a similar environment, and they go, Matthew, the first wave, we did really well. We probably had too much inventory, to be open and honest. And, we were very lucky because our inventory, because we had so high, when COVID hit and everybody bought everything, it looked amazing, right? It was like, hey, you guys really did a great job here. Then Kohl's and Woolies have come back and said, we want more, right? And the salespeople are going, we want more. Now, the planners, the supply chain team, the operations team are going, we can't make any more. We physically can't. You got to just push back. And the salespeople, obviously, right, are going, no, I want to make that sale. And then we're like, they're stuck in that, what do I do? What do I don't do, right? And, you can, as I say, you can only make as much as you physically make in 7 days, 24 hours, right? Unless you do some form of improvement. That's where that next challenge came in, right? And you can't make improvements when you're flat out and you've got COVID and you can't bring people in to upgrade your machines, and you can't bring people in to help you from a digital point of view or even from an operational point of view, or how do you improve what you're currently doing? And there's been a lot of challenges on that. And I'm going to touch two other things because I keep thinking of them and my brain keeps saying, from a food and bev, I think people have been able to go into the office if you're in operations. Whilst a lot of my contacts in the industrial products area have pretty much been working from home. And they go, well, Matthew, we've just been plugging away, keeping things going. We have better visibility of what's going on our shop floor. We understand what's happening, and we're trying to stay away. We're trying to give people the right distance. We might lower our DCs and put the right spacing between people, but that side we can pull away. Those that have, I would say, high quality concerns, you have to make sure everything's right. It's just been full on. You're still in the office. I know one person, and he said he's hired 3 new site managers for his 3 factories here in Victoria, and they all started during COVID. Right? So it's not like the market has stopped either. It keeps going because people are still needing to work. People are still growing and doing things. Vice versa, for someone like myself, and I provide a service that, is usually I go into places and, it's that human interaction. I've been able to do things virtually, right? So, I was joking with people that I still do virtual tours of factories or virtual tours of sites and give them examples. And we had a client who does motorhomes up in Queensland, and they would put me on a bunch of books, turn the monitor around. I'd be there full up and say, as if I was attending, right? And I joke because, 3 years ago, I would joke and say to people, people in the US who would have offices in Japan or in China or in Vietnam would have a person walk around with an iPad, and that's how they would see how their operations were going. And I was doing that. So people were walking around with their iPads, holding me around, and I would attend kickoff meetings, SNOP meetings. I was doing all that virtually. And I started to think, well, what's the difference? How can we as everybody keep growing and keep doing things? And that ties back to what Christine was saying, is we're probably not going to travel as much, right? You know, I don't see myself traveling all the time up to New South Wales or to Queensland if I can do it virtually. You know, why should we have to do all of those things? Because previously I was always thinking it was more of a frivolous thing. Client engagement has changed, you know, discussing challenges and coming up with fast solutions and being able to bring global experts in everything we all do has completely been changed and turned on its head because of the digital capabilities people have.
Yeah, well, take that in, everyone. Christine, what about you? Are you on a little iPad going around the warehouse with your clients?
Yeah, we have. We've been doing the same thing. Is for where, like, I've actually got an on-site visit with a client the first time in months on Friday. But up until then, yes, we've been where, and particularly because we cover nationally. So what we're seeing now is, okay, some of the other states have a bit more freedom. So what we've been doing here is where businesses have had folks on site and we were restricted, we would actually use their staff to then kind of do some observations. Where we've been able to have our own team members in other states, we've had them go on site and then jointly with the client. So whether that's using anything from FaceTime to Zoom, really, and even GoPros, and just really having an opportunity. And I think when you take that experience, because the outcome from those projects hasn't been any lower quality than previously when we would have been going and physically being there and possibly physically having a team of, 2 to 3 specialists on site at the time. So I think we've proven that the technology can still enable a really strong outcome for the client. So I think that will start to change how we look at kind of the execution of supply chain. I think it presents a really interesting, when you talk about access to global talent, if you're more comfortable with those technologies, it becomes increasingly easier to tap into expert skill levels wherever they may be. So I think it allows for your organization to just be a bit more dynamic and nimble, to be honest.
Yeah, we've lost Monique.
I know, and I have a message that says I'm the host now. Well,
well, you know what? Let's just keep going. Claire, did you want to say anything there?
Yeah, I mean, it's interesting, I guess, the change in landscape and what things will look like moving forward. And I guess supply chain's changed a lot over the last 5, 10, 15 years anyway. And there's a bit more of that commerciality about it. But something that I've been talking to and with HR professionals and senior supply chain professionals about is probably engagement and different personality types and how that's changed and shifted during this time period. So what's been quite interesting is historically the more introvert characters getting involved in an SNOP process might not be at the forefront with their peers in a room where they're having, I guess, a stand-up face-to-face meeting to discuss things, whereas in a platform where they're on a screen and they can see everybody, and it's a bit more of a fairer playing field, that the introverts have actually done really well. So supply chain professionals have probably adapted better to the working from home circumstances than maybe their peers in sales, that they're so used to being on the road all the time, interacting with their customers, and haven't necessarily utilized these platforms before. So that's been really interesting to see that shift in behavior. And from a management perspective, a remote management perspective, I've had mixed reviews on that as well, that some managers really like having the screen up with everybody on it. So say they've got 5 direct reports, there's 6 people on the screen, they can see everybody's face, everybody's interactions, and they can bring people in to the conversation easier. Whereas other people that are more tactile probably use their body language a bit better within a face-to-face forum, those individuals have maybe suffered more in a platform like this. So that's probably an interesting discussion point as well, is kind of how behaviors change through this time period.
Yeah, Claire, I'm gonna follow on that. So personally, I'm a touchy-feely type person. I like to see people. I like to do things. I like to read people's body language, right? And it was interesting, that question that went up a second ago is like, do you like doing digital meetings? The first answer is yes. I don't mind them. But where I find I struggle sometimes is when people don't have their cameras on, right? Because I can't read their reactions. And I'll be open and honest, I did a pitch yesterday to a client, and there were 7 of them, and there's 4 of them from my business, and all 4 of us have our screens on. 1 of them have their screens on, and the 6 of them don't. I have no clue how to read that engagement. Am I even saying the right thing? Am I talking the right language? How is that going? Because that's how I can usually, I'll call it reading the room. I can ebb and flow with people's reactions. If there's nodding of the heads or a smile or that makes sense. When I don't have that, it's a lot harder, right? You have to find alternative routes. You have to get in touch with them. You have to bring them into a conversation a little bit more. You have to try to bring something out. And for some people, it's perfect. It's really good. They get to see a lot of people. I do find it struggles when it's like, let's say if there's 20 people on a Zoom, I can't see everybody's body language always. I can try to do it if it's about 8 people, I'm pretty good. Anything more, I'm starting personally to struggle with body languages and how people's reactions are. So yeah, I'm enjoying it, right? Because it's stuff I've been doing for a long time, but at the same time, I look forward to the opportunity to be able to go see people and do different sessions. I will say this, I celebrated the moment I could go and have a coffee with someone, right? In Victoria, we weren't able to do it for such a long time. Being able just to go outside and speak to people and have that human interaction has been fantastic. And I know it's also going to be really hard for people transitioning from where they are now to where they need to be, because both it's been hard mentally on people throughout COVID. It will be also hard on us post-COVID, mentally and emotionally.
Yeah, so that's a good segue to ASCI networking events and what your chapter's thoughts are on that, with obviously Perth kicking off on the 3rd of December. It'll be great to see how it goes there. I've also got a poll here to launch. Would you be comfortable returning to an ASCI networking breakfast? So we'll wait and see the findings of that. But your thoughts, Matthew?
Well, my first question I was going to ask, Monique, was, is the Perth one going to be virtual? As in, is there going to be a camera and we can all watch, or are we back to basically our own chapters doing things again?
We will still do webinars, because through webinars, we've actually been able to reach people in regional areas, and we absolutely find that that is crucial for building the level of knowledge within our community. But the face-to-face events for members is really a special thing we just don't want to try to hybrid it.
Okay, so I would say, obviously I can't see us doing anything this side of the year, right? This side of Christmas. I would love for the chapter to come together in the new year to do safe COVID discussions and come together to ensure that we're all talking, communicating, learning, right? And that's the main thing for me, is the sharing of learning and experiences. Today, I've heard from Claire, Monique, and Christine about how things are going. You know what? We've got 23 other people on right now, and there was, I think, up to 30. I'd love to hear how they're doing, right? And what's going on. And so I think in the first quarter of next year, we should be doing stuff again. Where hopefully in Claire's office again, well, if Claire's back in the office, right? You can see how it's challenging, right? Because it's where is it going to be hosted? What, is it a safe environment? How can we do this? Do people feel comfortable? And I think we as a community need to ensure that one, we're safe. Two, you feel comfortable. Three, if you're not comfortable, we're still doing things of this nature for the Victorian chapter. And if you are comfortable, let's do some face-to-face things. So my gut with Christine and Claire is we're going to be pushing both of those aspects to start with, so that we keep both people happy of our spectrum.
Yeah,
I guess.
Your thoughts, Claire?
Yeah, I'd say, I mean, it's great that we've got the first one happening in Perth. So let's see kind of what happens there, what happens in Sydney, because these are the blueprints. These guys have been operating in the COVID normal world longer than we have. We've probably got a few weeks to go before we really kick back into what our COVID normal will look like. So I think it'd be interesting to see the feedback from there, and then build on, you know, what's worked, what hasn't, and what we feel would be right for our community here in Victoria.
Yeah. And Christine, what are your thoughts of getting out and learning and sharing again?
Yeah, I think I, for one, am absolutely looking forward to it. I think the opportunity to gather as a group, and whether that's over a glass of juice or a glass of wine, and kind of, you know, just collectively catch up in terms of how's everyone doing, what are the challenges the members have had. One of the things that I think probably kind of the wild card is our ability to do that successfully is also going to be guided by what type of restrictions we receive and what defines COVID safe moving forward. For example, social distancing and, for example, even face masks. It's going to be very challenging to have certain networking events, to have people have casual conversations if they're 3 meters apart from each other and both are wearing face masks, type of thing. So I think we do need to just, again, hopefully get the next round of information from government in terms of those restrictions, so that we can make the events as productive as possible, to be honest.
Yeah, that's right. Look, are you guys after some more help on the committee? I know we've had a surge of Victorian members, especially in August, September, that we seem to have a spike, which is great. There's a lot more to service. Would it be helpful to get some ambassadors, some specialists in different areas to complement the committee?
Monique, I'll say 100% yes. So if anybody who's currently on the Zoom session today, or if you're going to listen to the recording, please reach out to you know, any one of us four, and we will then bring you into the team so that we can all continue to make Victoria ASCI great. So yes, please.
So we've only got a few moments to go. Last comments from each of you. Matthew, since you've got the floor, what are your last comments on the state of our state after stage 4?
Look, I think the stage of our state, I think, you know, Victoria, we've had it hard this 2020, right? So we've had some massive challenges, mentally, emotionally, physically. You know, I do joke Tuesdays are my worst day. I think at one point during COVID, I did 200 steps for every Tuesday of like 2 months. And I figured 2 steps was pretty much me getting out of bed and going to my computer. And the reality is it's getting better. The markets are getting better. The organizations are changing their mindsets and they're looking to support supply chain even more. They're looking at that digitization. They're looking for people who've got skill sets in supply chain, whether that's planning, supply, demand, operations, you know, distribution, logistics. These things are all going gangbusters right now, right? We are a strong area of business at the moment, and we're at front of mind. And organizations are realizing how important the supply chain is, not just to them, but to the overall capability of how they're going to be able to service their customers. So we should really be proud of ourselves for being able to go through the last 6 months, coming out with a smile. You know, I saw some really crazy haircuts and some really bushy beards, and different photos to who they are now. And I'll say well done to all of us. I'll even say thank you to Christine, Claire, and to Monique for all your help over the last little bit. You know, for all of us, it's been a journey. It's been hard, but you know, 2021 is almost on its way, right? So I guess keep your head up. We can keep going, and we'll still strive forwards.
Yeah, no, that's a great way to end today. Claire, what are your last thoughts?
Well, how do I follow that? Ever the positive chap is Matt. So I guess for me and what we found interesting, so I'll bring some stats into it. We hosted a session with Paul Bloxham, the chief HSBC economist, back in April, and the hiring sentiment for those stakeholders that were involved, that was a few hundred stakeholders at a time that had hiring influence. They were in quite senior positions across different sectors, different disciplines. 23% of those individuals said within the next 3 months that they would be hiring. We held another session with him a few weeks ago, and that was up to 50%. So that's a positive stat in itself. I would say that Seek, for example, we get data from them with regards to jobs, how many jobs are coming up. We see that within our own business, the conversations that we're having. So things are looking up. I would say that my colleague actually thinks that we'll have a jobs flurry in the next 6 weeks for people to start in January. That's his thought. My thoughts are that people will have leave banked up, and now we're able to be released from the zoo, shall we say, that people will take the time off and things will pick up in January. Either or, you know, that's 6 weeks. So we've had 6 months of what we've been through. I think the next 6 weeks will be telling. It's interesting when we talk about supply chain. 6 months ago, probably people on this call would have had conversations with friends, family over the years, and people say, supply chain, what's that? What do you do? Now it's, you know, it's been a real buzzword, and it's become quite sexy to work within supply chain. So it's definitely a good spot to be, to echo what Matt said. I've been offered over the years many different opportunities to recruit in different areas, and I've always said no, because supply chain for me can be such a grey area in terms of how businesses view it, the job titles, the remit of responsibility, and it's a role and I guess a remit that you can really make your own and make a difference to a business in quite a substantial way. And that's now being recognised by you know, a lot of the big news channels, for example, have been having interviews with different businesses, and they've always been talking about their supply chain. One of the, I guess, most interesting Melbourne startups here, Who Gives a Crap? They ran out of toilet paper, massive toilet paper saga. Who'd have thought a year ago that we'd be all talking about toilet paper? But we were, and you know, they really we're doing exceptionally well. And the guy that owned the company was talking about their supply chain. I'm doing a lot of work with a company called Sleeping Duck at the moment, who are one of Australia's fastest growing startups, set up by 2 engineers a few years ago. Everybody's buying mattresses. People are investing, you know, back home. They're a retail e-commerce business. So there's plenty of optimism out there. And I think 2021, it's going to be a good year.
Oh, great. Thank you, Claire. And it's a pleasure working with you. Christine, you've got 1 minute to sum up. No pressure.
Well, I think I would just maybe tag on to what Claire was saying, is I think the silver lining to all the, you know, misfortune that we've had this year is that more people are using the term supply chain and are aware of supply chain. So I think the silver lining is that it's created an awful lot of awareness, but also opportunity for the skill sets that we have within the sector.
Yeah, wonderful. Thank you. You've been great panelists. Raise your hands, please, for our panelists today, the Victorian chapter. It's so great to work with you guys. I'm really looking forward to 2021. And thanks for sharing your expertise today.
Thank you. Thanks everyone.
Thanks, Monique. Thanks, everyone.
Bye.
Bye.
Bye-bye. You can stay on if you would like to do some more work around your registration. With me, Monique Fennick, I'll be continuing with live Q&A if you'd like to stay back.